Hi, welcome back to Coffee with JM. If you're new here, nice to meet you. I'm JM, and if you've been here since last week, then thank you so much for coming back. Because I honestly wasn't sure if anybody would, so yeah, appreciate it. Today's episode is dedicated to a very specific group of people those who don't eat breakfast. If you're one of them, let me ask you, why is that? Why is that? Is it because you never have the time when you wake up? Because you're too lazy to make one, because you can't be bothered to think about what to eat, because your stomach just doesn't feel great in the morning? Or is it simply, it's like not part of your routine without like any specific reason and you've never really thought about changing it? For me, it's actually like all of the above. And yes, I'm one of those people who don't eat breakfast, like 95% of the time, I will say. And for the remaining 5%, it's when I go back home to Hong Kong, like my home city, where my parents have a routine of eating breakfast every morning. So naturally, when I go back, I just adapt to their lifestyle. And yeah, growing up with my parents, I actually used to eat breakfast every single day. I used to have an actual breakfast routine. And then one day, I don't even remember when, I just stopped. Like this whole thing just stopped existing. And somehow, the habit never came back. So today, I want to go down the memory lane with you all, trace it back to the beginning, and let's figure out when things started to change. And also, more importantly, why they changed. Now, before we dive in, let's do the coffee check. This is the little ritual in each episode where I share with you guys the coffee I'm having today. Well, today's drink isn't actually coffee. It's a iced matcha latte. Yeah, before you guys say anything, I know. I know it. Like, it's only the second episode. It's only the second coffee check, and I'm already breaking the rules by not drinking coffee. But you guys, like matcha contain caffeine, right? So it's still kind of like on topic. Or does it not count? Never mind. I apologize, guys. And we'll go back to coffee next time. But today I really am craving for a matcha latte, so here is it. Anyway, like this one is from Tokia. It's a Korean matcha house in London. And one of my friends recommended this place to me because apparently they do really good matcha, so I thought I'd give it a try. Actually, I wasn't a matcha person for the longest time. If you gave me the choice between like coffee and matcha, I choose coffee every single time. And I never really used to like randomly crave for matcha drinks or desserts either. Until like a couple of weeks ago, I went to a cafe with one of my friends, and that was the first time I suddenly thought, you know what? I kind of like want to try matcha latte. So I ordered one. I took the first sip, and my immediate reaction was, like I don't think it is really good. It tastes kind of strange, a little bit like grassy. I couldn't quite describe how I felt that moment, but in my head, I was just thinking, like, this doesn't make sense to me. So then I passed it to my friend and asked her to try it. And then she went, no, this is actually really good. Girl, like matcha just really tastes like this. And then that was that moment. I was like, oh, so yeah, all right. And that's how unfamiliar I used to be with matcha. I didn't even know like what a proper matcha was supposed to taste like. But for some reason, like over the past few weeks after that cafe meetup with my friend, I've slowly started developing a love for it. I don't know like where this came from, but it is what it is. And for this drink, I actually really like it. The matcha flavor is strong enough that you can actually taste it. It's earthy, it's like slightly bitter, and doesn't get like completely drowned out by the milk. Because like I feel like a lot of matcha lattes I've had in the UK just taste like green milk, like green colored milk. They're like sweet, creamy, and they have this nice shade of green, but I can't really taste the matcha. And apparently, like good ones are harder to find than I thought. This doesn't do that. If you're a matcha person, if you're slowly becoming one like me, I'd recommend giving this place a try. Alright, now that we've got our drink, let's talk about breakfast. At first, when I started thinking about this whole, like I'm not having breakfast anymore thing, I actually wonder, like, is it really that important? Do I really need to like treat it as a concern? Do I actually need to reflect on it? Because I've been skipping breakfast for what? Like a couple of years now? At least I think. And I'm living perfectly fine. I don't really have like major health problems. Well, I do get like back pain, headaches, stomach problems quite easily. I also get sick from time to time, but it's not like I'm experiencing health issues that are directly associated with not eating breakfast. At least not that I'm aware of. So then I become curious. Like, generally speaking, is breakfast actually a good thing? Is it really good for your health? Is it something worth making part of your routine? Because if it is, then maybe skipping breakfast has been causing some hidden harm over the years and I just haven't realized it yet. Maybe I should start eating breakfast again. But if there isn't actually like anything particularly beneficial about eating breakfast, if it's just like a widely accepted belief that eating breakfast automatically means that you're healthier, then maybe I don't need to be so bothered about not having it, right? There are so many different opinions on the internet about having breakfast that is honestly just really confusing. There's the traditional saying which goes, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And then there are people who are like, you know what? Actually, skip breakfast. And then in recent years, intermittent fasting suddenly become like a huge trend, and people started saying like, "Oh, skipping breakfast is a form of like doing it. So if you want to try it, you should give it a go." And then there are someone else who come along and say, "No, intermittent fasting is like ruining your metabolism, and you shouldn't do that." So like at this point, I don't even know who to believe anymore. And I'm nowhere near being a professional when it comes to like nutrition science. So I think let me do some research. I googled it. And then I ended up reading this like BBC article that looked at decades of research on breakfast. It turns out that researchers still debate whether breakfast itself is the reason some people are healthier, or whether people who regularly eat breakfast also tend to have like a healthier lifestyle in general. And what kept coming up was that instead of like obsessing over breakfast is important, we should look at our eating habits as a whole. Like, eat when you're hungry, have balanced meals, and don't expect like one good breakfast in one day can automatically, like magically fix the otherwise imbalanced lifestyle. So I guess like the answer isn't as black and white as I expected. It seems like it's actually quite personal. It's like what works well for one person might not work well for me, for someone else. But besides of that, there were a few things that also kept showing up across the article. It goes like this. It said that eating earlier in the day seems to work better with our body's natural rhythm. And some studies also found that people who eat breakfast tend to have a steadier blood sugar. And breakfast has been linked to things like better concentration and memory. So like after reading all of that, I think I do want to like try to bring breakfast back into my routine. At least try it for a while and see. Like I want to see if it helps me build a better daily system and whether it's something that, like genuinely suits me. Actually, I think it will be. It probably will be. Because, like, as I said earlier, I used to be a breakfast person. If I trace it all the way back, I think my relationship with breakfast started with my mom. She was and still is a very healthy person. Actually, both my parents are, but my mom especially. She has always believed that breakfast is something you simply can't skip. Like, it wasn't even a discussion. It's just like a fact. I grew up hearing things like, you have to eat breakfast before you start your day. You can't, like survive until the afternoon without eating a single bite of food. I don't actually know like whether she got that from science, like traditional Chinese beliefs or just from being an Asian mom. Maybe all three. Maybe all three. But she believed it. She believed it, like very strongly. And because she believed it, I believed it too. I believed it too. Well, actually, I don't really have a choice. When I was in kindergarten and primary school, life was like so simple. Every weekday looked almost exactly the same. I'd wake up around 7, get changed, pack my school bag, eat breakfast, leave the house, and then next day repeat. Everything was so well structured, and I never really like had to think about what come next because the adults had already planned it out for me. And breakfast was just one of those things. It happened like every single morning. I'd have like whatever my mom made for me. Sometimes it was like 2 eggs with some fruit on the side, and then sometimes it's pastry with some fruit on the side, and then sometimes dumplings. And yeah, there's also like this bigger breakfast that she liked to make. It's like this more like a Chinese style macaroni, like you cook the macaroni in chicken broth, and my mom will cook it together with some cabbage and an egg, like mixing it. So yeah, nothing particularly fancy, but I do used to have like really balanced breakfasts. Oh, and my mom also had like really strong opinion about eating clean. Take pastry, for example. I'm from Hong Kong, and if you've ever been to a Hong Kong bakery, you'll know like there are so many different kinds of buns, like sausage buns, pineapple buns, tuna buns, and apparently, like according to my mom, they all had different health rankings. Come on, guys, let me introduce you to her tier list. For S tier, there is tuna buns because, well, protein. And I also just think she genuinely loves tuna herself. For A tier, we got vegetable and pork buns. They had vegetables and the pork inside was steamed, so they seemed lower in oil and salt in general, so they sound healthy enough. And then, right at the bottom of the list, were sausage buns. Those were like basically banned in our household. According to my mom, they were like highly processed, like packed with sodium and just like not healthy at all. Along with the food, there always will be milk. There always had to be milk. Sometimes plain milk, sometimes chocolate milk, because milk contains calcium. And once again, according to my mom, that meant it was good for our health. Looking back now, I actually really respect how much thought my mom would put into our breakfast. Keeping this routine for a primary school was quite easy because I had time for it. My primary school was like only a 15-minute walk from home, so I didn't have to like wake up very early and would still have plenty of time to sit down, like eat breakfast at my own pace and then head to school. And I never really had to do any of the thinking or like the practical cooking work for breakfast myself. I didn't have to like remind myself to eat breakfast. I didn't have to like decide on what to eat. I didn't have to like make it. I just sit down and eat. Gosh, I was like so lucky. And actually pretty spoiled, I'll say. But like when you're 10 years old, you don't really realize how much you should appreciate those little things. And as I move into secondary school, I actually even started getting annoyed by this whole breakfast routine. It just felt so inconvenient. My secondary school was much further away from home than my primary school. I had to commute for more than half an hour every morning. So, like, suddenly I had to wake up earlier, travel further, and like every extra minute in bed just felt really precious. All I wanted to do was to like sleep until the very last minute, get changed, and then just rush out of the door. To me, breakfast was like the only thing that is optional and I can sacrifice. But my mom didn't think so. This didn't exactly go down well with her. So every morning become like a negotiation. My mom would be like, "Come eat breakfast," and I'd be like, "No, I'm late." And she'd say like, "Just a few bites," and then I'll say like, "No, I don't have the time." And then she'll look at me with this look, with that look. You know the one. You know that one. So in the end, I'll be standing by the dining table with my school bag already on my back sometimes, like one shoe in, desperately looking at a clock and shoving pieces of bread, like slices of orange or whatever else into my mouth. I was like, I remember I was like so annoyed, like irrationally annoyed. Because this whole thing stressed me out like every morning, literally. I'd wake up like already feeling stressed. And while I was getting ready, all I could think was like be quick so you still have time for breakfast so you won't need to like argue with mom. And you know how it is in the morning. You've just woken up, rushing to get to school, you're already not in your best mood, and then this extra pressure of having to make time for breakfast just make everything feel worse. So yeah, if you told 16-year-old JM that one day nobody would force her to eat breakfast anymore, oh my god, she would be so thrilled. I would have celebrated. I actually think I don't hate breakfast itself. I think breakfast represented lack of freedom back then. It represented like my mom was telling me what to do. And I couldn't wait for the day when nobody remind me anymore, when I could like finally decide for myself. Like somehow when you're a teenager, freedom just felt like saying no to everything your parents tell you to do. And for some reason, we just all convinced that we know better. And then that day finally came. The day I could finally decide for myself whether I wanted to eat breakfast or not. I moved to the UK for university. And for I don't even remember like how long, this felt amazing. It felt like wait, actually, I let me take that back. Saying it felt amazing wasn't entirely accurate. I didn't really feel anything, to be honest, because I don't even remember like consciously thinking about breakfast. It wasn't like I woke up one day and proudly decided that, oh, like I'm never gonna be eating breakfast again. It just quietly faded out in my life, I guess. Like when my parents were no longer here to remind me, I simply lost track of this whole idea of breakfast time. And before I knew it, I think skipping breakfast had just become my new normal. That's the thing about freedom as an adult. It's not all glitz and glamour. Yes, I mean, independence means that you can now do whatever you want, but it also comes with the immediate catch of like total responsibility. When no one is there to remind you to pay your bills, make your breakfast, or keep your life on track, it doesn't mean that those things just suddenly stop mattering and you can just throw them all away. It means that you're the one that's responsible for them now. You're the one who has to like build your own structure. You're the one who has to be accountable for yourself, figure out the routines and system that actually works for you, and then stick to them even when nobody is there to tell you to. That's kind of like the typical cheesy thing you hear most often about lessons you learn in your 20s, I know. I know. But like it's also definitely easier said than done, I think. At least it is for me. So let's dig a little deeper into why is it difficult. Why do I struggle with this? Or maybe if you're also someone who don't eat breakfast or someone who is trying to build your own lifestyle and routines, let's figure out together. I think it consists of like two parts. The first part is figuring out what even deserves a place in your life. Growing up, I never really questioned my routines. I just followed them. I ate breakfast because breakfast happened at 7:30 every morning. I never stopped to ask myself, does this actually work for me? Do I genuinely feel better after eating breakfast? Would my mornings be different if I skip it? No. But now, given that the household rules are gone, and if I'm going to build my own rules, I have to rewrite everything. I have to figure out what exactly suits me and what doesn't, right? Everything become a process of like trial and error or like experiments. Let's use an example like other than breakfast. I'm getting bored of talking about it. Take exercise, for example. Maybe you're someone who loves going to the gym first thing in the morning. Maybe you absolutely hate that. Maybe you perform much better at night. Maybe the gym isn't your thing. Maybe you love hot yoga instead. Or maybe hot yoga isn't for you either. Maybe you enjoy swimming, like even in freezing cold winter. Or maybe you like all of them, right? You rotate between different types of exercise throughout the week. You don't really know like until you try. Breakfast is kind of like the same. Maybe eating breakfast helps give you more energy and focus throughout the morning. Or maybe you realize that you're naturally not hungry until lunchtime, and forcing yourself to eat first thing doesn't actually makes you feel any better. You won't know actually until you give yourself enough time to figure out, right? Oh, and actually, that's the key point. When you're experimenting with your routines, you can't just try something for 2 to 3 days and then decide, like, yep, this worked and that doesn't. I used to exactly do that. I'm quite an impatient person. I like seeing immediate results. So I've actually tried bringing breakfast back into my life many times since I started living alone. Every now and then, I'd wake up one morning with this like sudden burst of motivation, and I will think like, right, JM, starting today, let's become a morning person. Let's become a morning person. I'm going to eat something healthy before I start my day. And then I will make myself like a bowl of cereal, some yogurt with granola or like peanut butter and banana toast. Oh my god, I actually love that one. And then I'd sit there eating it thinking like, yeah, this feels good. I should definitely keep doing this. Then the next morning come. And when my alarm rang, I hit snooze. Wake up late. And once again, breakfast would become the only thing I was willing to sacrifice. It was always this random wave of motivation, but never like a long enough period of consistency for it to become a habit. I always stopped before I could reach any concrete conclusion. Maybe if I kept eating breakfast for a month, I would have noticed a difference. But I never did. And that's where the second part comes in. Discipline. The challenge isn't just trying something once. It's to continue to show up even on mornings when you don't feel like it. It's staying committed to the experiment, giving yourself enough time to figure out what works for you. I feel like it's so easy to give up, or like it's very tempting to get lazy. Because you're constantly pushing yourself into like this discomfort of doing something when you're not even sure like whether it will pay off in the end. But I guess that's just the price we have to pay. That's just the price we have to pay. If we want to become someone who understands ourselves a little better, someone who take better care of ourselves, someone who's able to build a life that genuinely works for us, and ultimately, someone who knows how to love ourselves in the best way possible. All right. I think that's enough talking about breakfast for one day. That's enough talking about breakfast for one day. If you're listening to this in the morning and you don't usually eat breakfast and you're not sure whether this is meant for you, maybe this is your sign to make yourself something before you start your day. I mean, test it out. Why not, right? Okay. Thank you so much for going on another coffee date with me. Thank you so much. I'm starting to feel more comfortable hanging out with you all, and I hope you feel the same way too. Now, finish your coffee, take good care of yourself, and I'll see you next Thursday. Bye.